Did you know that you have rights? The Constitution says you do, and so do I. I believe until proven otherwise, every man, woman, and child should hear this podcast. And that's why we talk to you, Internet. Better Squawk Saul.
Hi, everybody. We are here today to cover the mid-season finale of Better Call Saul, episode 607, Plan and Execution.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Wait. Show your sign.
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
Yes.
Nice. Today, we are here with Rachel, Cosmo Mamo 9, Bridget, Ain't My First Radio on Instagram, and Ex-Prophecy Girl on Twitter. And our special guest today, Aiden Hamlin.
Yay!
Oh, he changed his name. Aiden, at Aiden_Atkin_ on Instagram. Aiden just caught up on the series, and he has been doing the blogs for us. So actually, he was spoiled on everything up until the last episode. Sorry, Aiden.
Poor baby Aiden.
I'm
so
super
sorry.
glad you did not get spoiled on this because you watched it with Rachel and I live, and I really wish we had been recording your reaction because it was hilarious.
You jumped clear 10 feet in the air.
Like, for real.
You just was like up and back. Oh, it was hilarious.
Yeah. It's always fun when you know what's going to happen watching somebody else. Like, it's great.
We have to record us watching it the last episode. We have
definitely,
to. We have to make sure we get those reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I've heard a whole lot of theories going on, and I don't like any of them.
Oh, shit.
We open up on Lalo coming out of the sewer, and he goes to his car and takes off his rubber pants and puts on some flip-flops and goes to a truck stop, takes a shower. On the Insider podcast, they said that was a real truck stop. And that was really the shower in there. Like, that was what it really looked like. They didn't build the set or anything for that. That was what the truck stop shower really looked like.
Thank you for that. I have been curious my entire life. Since the first time I stepped into a truck stop and saw there were showers, I was always like, what does it look like back there? Like, what could possibly be back there?
I always thought it was like a locker room, maybe, like, you know, like some lockers and like 3 or 4 showers in a row that people get in. But no, that was the, I mean, I'm not saying all of them are like that, but that was a real truck stop they used. They said that they put some set dressing in there, like the soaps, and, you know, they made it look a little bit prettier than it really did, but it basically was just like that.
Well, I still have one question about this. Where are the towels? Because in my mind, I'm like, do you have to bring your own towel in?
Well, Lalo didn't have one.
But Lalo didn't. So
right,
then
they probably have a cabinet with some in there, would be my guess.
Suddenly I was like, what? And how can you trust those towels then that have been left out to the masses?
How can you trust a fucking truck stop shower?
Yeah, if you're showering at a truck stop, I think you're beyond trusting the towels.
Yeah.
Flip-flops. Those are his shower shoes.
Shower shoes.
Exactly. Towels.
After the shower, he goes out to his car and sets his timer and takes a nap. First of all, let me say there are a whole lot of callbacks in this episode to the first 5 seasons. And this was one of them, when he lays down in the car and he takes the timer and sets it for an hour. Very similar to when she was doing Mesa Verde and she took a nap in her car. That was the one with the jump cut that made everybody jump. You know, like when her alarm went off. And this was different. This was, you know, it's the same setting. They're sleeping in their car, but this time Lalo wakes up calm. He's not surprised at all. He goes back to the sewer and goes back down in, and I was like, wait a minute, you just took a shower. Why are you going back in the sewer?
That's what I thought. I was like, that's disgusting.
I thought maybe he had used the sewer to get into the United States. That's why the car was there waiting for him and everything. Mm-hmm. So when he went back in, I was like, why are you going back into the sewer? So then we find out why, because he's, you know, watching Gus. Another thing I thought when I was watching it, as he's going through the tunnel, I was like, man, that tunnel really looks like the oil tanker. And on the Insider podcast, they said that is what it was. It was the oil tanker. They cut the ends of it off and put it in there as a tunnel. Because obviously they're not really filming in the sewers. It's a soundstage.
They use a real truck stop, but not real sewers.
Right. It's a little bit cramped to film in the sewers, I would think.
Yeah. Not sure you want your cameras down there.
Yeah. So you got 300 people crammed into the sewers. It might be a little,
tight. Tight squeeze.
So then, of course, we see that he's watching Gus, watching the laundry. What did you guys think of the opening scene?
I think Lalo is just such an interesting and intriguing character. And I think Tony Dalton, like every time he comes on screen, I'm just like in awe you just don't know what he's going to do. The first half of the season has very much obviously been building with him because you kind of don't know what he's going to do. You don't know when he's going to show up. And you're like, okay, when he does show up, who is he going to go after? And then, so I just kind of liked all these seeds planted. And it shows, especially with the dynamic of the contrast with Gus, when he's constantly panicking and he's like checking the cameras and he's doing all this stuff. And then you see the contrast with Lalo. Like you said, he's very relaxed. It just shows the type of different characters. And I like that, how they've written him, because it just shows how different each and every one of the Salamancas are, because they're all psychotic and crazy, but all in very different ways.
Honestly, I like still, even now, I cannot get over the end. It's blocked my brain from being able to like really look at this episode. And I feel like I need like time. Like I can maybe come back to this in a couple months, but like, I'm still like, what the hell just happened? It was great. I was excited that Lalo was back in it, and then not excited that he was back. But at the beginning, when it first showed him and he was in the US, I was like, awesome. We're going to get like movement in this story. And there's going to be a lot of it really quickly. And so I was really looking forward to that. And then it was like, too much movement.
No, stop the movement now.
I don't like it. I don't like it. He's okay, right? He's okay.
He and Beth, man, him and Beth are hanging out together.
Oh, God.
Rub some dirt on it. It'll be fine.
I always love when they open the show with no dialogue, when you can just sort of immerse yourself in what you're seeing. And like, I don't know about you guys, but my brain immediately just starts running wild with ideas. Like I want to try and predict what's going to happen before it happens, like right in the moment. The show never fails to be beautiful in everything that it does. Even the fucking truck stop was just glorious. And then at the end, when all the pieces finally come, not the end of the episode, the end of the intro, when all the pieces finally come together, you're like, oh, and it's just that reveal. Mm-hmm. You're like,
they're so good at just, you could never figure out what they're going to do. It's always a surprise. And I love that. Our Casimiro body double guy, he's taking carts. I guess he works at the big department store there, and he's out gathering carts. And while he's gathering carts, he is working on lines from a play. And that play is Millennium Approaches, Angels in America #1 by Tony Kushner.
Mm.
It's a metaphorical play about AIDS and homosexuality in America in the 80s. Certain major and minor characters are supernatural beings or deceased. Angels are ghosts. But the line that you were talking about, the person speaking is named Roy. He says, "Please let me finish. Few people know this, and I'm telling you this only because I'm not afraid of death. What can death bring that I haven't faced? I've lived. Life is the worst. Listen to me, I'm a philosopher. Joe, you must do this. You must. Love, that's a trap. Responsibility, that's a trap too. Like a father to a son, I tell you this, life is full of horror. Nobody escapes. Nobody. Save yourself. Whatever pulls on you, whatever needs from you, threatens you, don't be afraid. People are so afraid. Don't be afraid to live in the raw wind, naked and alone. Learn at least this, what you are capable of. Let nothing stand in your way."
Mm-hmm.
Sounds a lot like Jimmy, doesn't it? Or Kim. They don't do anything by accident on the show, and I just thought it was neat that they chose that particular passage for our guide. Which, and after Saul talks him into getting in the car, as he talks him into it, and he's like, the last thing he says is, "Let nothing stand in your way. Let nothing stand in my way." Yeah. What I noticed was Saul used all different kind of tactics. Money, $300, $400. I'll get you. I'll get you out of it with your boss. I'll sue your boss. We'll take care of it. But what really sold him was the idea that he could use his craft. That was what got him to get in the car. It was for the fun of it and for the craft. And that also was a little parallel to Jimmy and Kim, because as Howard says later, they did it for the fun. Yes, the money was a great incentive, but that's not really why they did it. They did it because they wanted to. It was fun for them. I feel like that's kind of the same. It's just a little parallel between them.
I expected nothing less from Jimmy. That was Jimmy in his prime, doing what he does.
He's the guy for this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we knew he had to do something to appease Kim, since she was like, "No, this happens today." So he was under some serious pressure to get this guy.
They actually addressed that in the Insider podcast. They were talking about how Jimmy didn't really want to do this. Like, he kept trying to put the brakes on it and kept trying to put the brakes on it, but he was going to lose Kim over it. Every time he tried to thwart it, she was gung-ho even more. And that's why he ultimately ended up going along with it, was because Kim was that important to him.
I thought it was really good. And like you said, it shows the lengths that Jimmy is willing to go to, which we've been seeing that really the last, section of episodes where they've been focusing on this Howard stuff. And I just, every time they did something, I'm like, damn, they're really going for it. Dressing up as him in the car and the Clifford Maine thing, I mean, and this whole episode just obviously, being the icing on the cake of that whole thing. And I didn't really know what was going on, like with the actor and stuff. And that maybe just because like I'm coming from a binge where I haven't been analyzing things as closely. I haven't been rewatching. I may not have caught everything because I was just going boom, 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 boom. I literally started season 1 like a month ago. So like everything, like I don't really have time to let things marinate. So I didn't really catch it until after the fact. And I was like, this is really good. But I like the fact that he was willing to just keep raising like the money and stuff like that too. He was like, all right, 400, whatever you want, just do it. Like he was going
just do it.
Whatever that guy wanted him to do.
Throwing out whatever he could possibly throw out there. Which, I mean, that's what Jimmy is good at. I mean, he knows how to read people. He knows what to say to make them do what he wants. The camera guy.
Oh my God.
I love that guy.
Do we know his name? What is his name?
He does not have a name on the show. None of them do, technically.
Camera guy.
I mean, I think they do, like if you go back and look on Wiki, I think they do, but like they're never mentioned in the show. The actor's name is Josh Fadem, Fadem. I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry, Josh. The camera that he's talking about when they open up the SL5 or whatever, early on in the series when he's working for Jimmy asks him, because he's always about the money, and Jimmy's like, what is it with you and money? And he's like, I'm trying to save up for an SL5, whatever that camera was. That was the camera that he was talking about. So just thought that was another neat little callback. So he's telling all the other students that they're not allowed to touch the nice cameras.
Is that his personal camera, or do you think it's the college's camera?
I think it's the college's, because he said he doesn't speak for the
Equipment center.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I was going to say, because if it was his camera, I wouldn't want them touching it either.
Right. I love how we described the lesser quality one. You could film your sister's second wedding.
Yeah. Or porno.
A porn without plot.
That's great.
When they do the shoot, everything about the scene was perfect. The camera work, the humor. I love the camera work they did as they circle around them, as they're putting the makeup on and doing the cast and everything, but they're just continually going in the circle around them. And the music just makes it so kind of get up and go. And it was funny when the camera guy says, nobody touches my stuff. And Jimmy's like, truer words have never been spoken. And the makeup girl dressed up as the Gelfling.
From the Dark Crystal.
From the Dark Crystal.
Right?
We're doing a Dark Crystal musical. It's great.
So random too.
Kim shows up, and once again, Jimmy gives her an out. I can do this. You go on to your meeting. You can still make it. She won't do it.
Well, the last time she left, everything fell apart. So she probably feels like I can't leave, or this isn't going to go the way it needs to.
I don't know. I feel like we've seen Kim be very self-destructive. And she doesn't allow herself to be happy. Feeling like this was such a sure thing could have been scary for her, almost paralyzing. Like, if I go through with this, it's going to be really good. And how do I handle that? How do I handle being happy? Because like we've seen her over and over again be very hesitant about being excited for herself when great things happen.
Also, how can I go back to small time scams after doing this big one? Maybe. I do want to touch on something you said, Bridget, though. A big theme in this episode is thinking that they're in control when they're not. And Howard even talks about it briefly in the scene where he's with the soda can, when he says that was Chuck's way of being prepared for anything. But the fact is, you can't always be prepared for everything. And everyone in this episode is dealing with a situation that they thought they had control of, but they don't. Even Lalo, because Lalo thought he had the whole situation under control until he tried to call Hector and realized that they tapped the phones. And that totally changed his plan. He was no longer in control of that situation. Gus, he thinks he's in control, but he's not. He's not in control because Lalo's still out there. Howard, he's obviously not. Howard thinks he's in control of the situation at the conference, but that obviously spirals way out of control. And not only does he think he's got the conference under control, he thinks he has Kim and Jimmy under control and what they're trying to do. And as we see, that he does not in the slightest. He even thinks he's prepared for them, but he's not. And of course, Jimmy and Kim, they have control of the situation all the way through. You know, hey, we did it. We're all right. We can even handle Howard when he comes to see us. But once again, they're out of control of their situation as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Nail, meathead.
Howard essentially becomes Chuck in this episode, and I'm going to talk about that more when we get there. Like Chuck did, he thought he had everything under control. He thought he had everything in the bag, especially that comes to a head in the trial during chicanery. He's so sure of himself. You know, Howard at the meeting, like, oh no, get those photos off my desk. And they just look crazier and crazier. Mm-hmm. And that obviously just shows how smart Jimmy and Kim are. But even by the end of the episode, we see that they are not in control either. And pretty much every character on the show, or at least it's present for this episode, thinks they are so sure of something at one point, whether it be by the end of the episode or in the middle or whatever, they lose that control. And some of them get it back, like Lalo. You know, you'd mentioned him earlier. He's probably the only one, but everyone else kind of loses it. And I love it when shows do that running theme, and it's not obvious, but when you think about it, everyone has it at a different time in the episode and for a different reason. And I think it's really, these writers are fucking brilliant.
Yes. Oh, definitely. And yes, we are going to touch on all the callbacks to Chuck's trial because there were many of them.
I mean, we've kind of seen that repeated throughout the series, right? This false belief in yourself that you have control and can have control over everything, which is, as we all know from experiencing real life, is not an aspect of real life that you have 100% control over. You just don't. It's something, you know, people really struggle with. People who are victims of trauma struggle with it. People who have issues with substance abuse struggle with it. It all becomes this like desperate grasp to control the situation that you're in, and no one has that. It really came to a head in this episode, and I want to come back to this when we get to Gus, because even though his part was very small, the control aspect applies to him in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the characters on the show, like Kim, Jimmy, Gus, Lalo, Hector, whoever, Howard, they're used to being in control for the most part. So it's interesting to see them lose that control, but it's also interesting to compare that to Nacho, who was the one character on the show who was never in control, and he knew it. He knew that he wasn't in control, so he was able to live his life the way he wanted, and then he was able to end his life the way he wanted, which I think is an interesting comparison.
That was the only control he had left.
Iggy took control when it mattered.
Yeah,
he played the one card that he had, and some people don't get to do that.
Poor Howard. Okay.
Poor Nacho.
The dark room where they're doing the photos. You can't rush the process. The one thing I noticed that was interesting in the scene was the clock said 11:30. So Casimiro says later that he got into Albuquerque at 10 and he went to a gas station and then he went to a liquor store to get a gift. So I'm going to say that he was probably at that liquor store between like 10:15 and 10:30 maybe. So they basically put all of this together in like an hour and 15 minutes and got the pictures out the door. I just thought that was pretty cool.
All I have to say is I guess Albuquerque isn't very big because their traveling time seems to be a little sparse.
The cute little kiss on the cheek as Jimmy ran out the door with their scam.
That was so cute.
Materials.
I did notice that he had 2 envelopes in his hand at the time, but I'm like, I didn't think much of it. I should have, right? Because they flashed it right in front of our faces. But I was like, maybe they're like just a different set. Like he'll decide which one he actually wants to use. I don't know.
That's why it's so brilliant. That's why they reveal it.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Yes.
Every detail is like, it's right here. And you don't realize it until it happens. You know, like we said about the callbacks, they do the same thing in chicanery with Huel and everything. So it's like everything is there. You just don't realize it until after. And then it makes you go, you saw my reaction. It makes you go, I was like this for like half of the episode. So
I was right about the private investigator. Yay!
Yes, you
He was
were.
working for Jamie.
I'm so happy they explained it too.
Yeah, I love the explanation they came up with. Of course, that's how they did it. Yeah, I was really happy when I saw Jimmy throw the pictures to him. I was like, yes.
I think Rachel and I were both really happy for you because I remember our reaction during the watch was we were like,
Howard comes into the conference room and he pulls a chair out and moves it over to the corner, which of course we know now was so he could wheel Mrs. Landry down there in the wheelchair. Let's make her look weak.
I was gonna say,
give these old people some more money, Rich Swikert.
Yeah, talk about playing it up. No, we just want you to be as comfortable as possible. Get in the wheelchair, bitch, is what that meant.
I was so worried about Howard touching Mrs. Landry with that shit on his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole time I was like, oh my God, don't touch her bare skin. Oh my God, don't touch her bare skin. And I mean, they had to kind of do that on purpose to make us even more tense. That was tension building, getting us even more worried. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
There were so many red herrings in this episode to be like concerned about. So I was worried about Howard. And then when we were watching, I was like, what if he touches Irene and that did it? And you were like, don't worry, he didn't touch her skin. And I was like, but he touched the teacup. Like suddenly it was like every little thing. I was like, no. And then he's like, is it hot in here? And I was like, oh God, he's going to die. Like, it was just like every little piece was like, maybe no, just messing with you.
Like I said, I saw somebody had looked at the tea that Howard was drinking in the last episode, and it was chamomile tea, which has no caffeine. And so when they put the emphasis on the caffeine, it was like, oh my God, it's going to kill him because he's going to be over caffeinated and he doesn't drink caffeine. And
nope.
I mean, he did die, but it wasn't from caffeine.
Right.
Howard in the he's in there, and then the little new guy comes in, Carrie, and he drops the sodas. Howard tells the story about how Chuck would turn the can and all that. Again, that plays into the theme of being prepared for anything and being in control. And Chuck always wanted to be in control and be prepared. Aiden, you tested that theory, didn't you?
I tested that theory. I did. I literally took a soda can, I shook it up in my hand, and then I looked over at my couch and I tossed it at my couch. And then I grabbed the soda can, I took it over to the fireplace, and I did it. And I said, okay. And it worked. When I got on here, I was like, should I bring a soda can and do it on the show? I was like, my luck on my computer crashed. But I loved it. I loved it. And I was like, this is one of the reasons why this show is so perfect. And I just love that they included that story, because as someone who goes to school and studies writing, you always want to make your characters feel more real. And I've always gotten compliments on that for being able to make my characters real. And one of the things that I always do is take details from someone that you know, or stories. Like if someone told you a story years ago, incorporate that. If someone doesn't like ice cream, that little detail helps you understand their character. So I love that they gave that detail because it was so fitting to Chuck and to the scenario. And obviously, I saw on Twitter, people talking about, he's silencing the explosion of the can, just like the silenced explosion at the end of the episode, which I loved too. Because then it's another one of those things that when you rewatch it, it's like, oh, damn, they're so good.
At the end of that scene, Howard was talking about Chuck, and Carrie says, hope that somebody says that about me one day. And Howard says, maybe there are more important things. What do you think Howard was referencing?
Well, first off, can I just say, Carrie is a buffoon, and there is no way anyone will ever say that about that guy.
I think Howard, the look Howard had, was kind of supporting that too.
When he said that, I was like, really, my dude? Really? You just dropped a bunch of drinks in front of this guy because you're so nervous. I don't think so.
I think the only person that might say that about him is his mommy.
He's got a mug that says world's greatest lawyer from his mom. It kind of felt to me like it was this sad reference towards the fact that he has made it to the top. He has his own firm and he did everything the right way in that firm. He doesn't have any blood on his hands in that regard, but his life has kind of crumbled around him. That feeling I got from it was that the happiness that you find outside of your work should matter too. You should strive to be happy, not just the best at something, because he isn't happy. His wife and he are separated, and he's sleeping on a bad mattress in the guest house. And, it's all this money and power and everything didn't get him where he wants to be now in this, as we know, last day of his life, which is really sad.
Yeah.
Well, I like your answer much better because I was only thinking about his wife. but everything piled on top of that, it makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
I agree 100% with what both of you just said. I also was thinking about Chuck because that's who they're talking about, right? When they say, so all everything Bridget said, but also there are more important things in life because even though everyone considered Chuck to be the greatest legal mind they knew, how did he spend the last years of his life? Alone, wrapped in a baked potato blanket.
Yeah, he was not happy. He was not happy at all.
And pretty much
his wife
everyone
as well.
hated him.
He lost his wife too.
He lost his wife. Jimmy pretty much got to the point where he hated him. You know, Kim. Howard was probably the only person who still was there. You know, even Ernie, poor Ernie, looked uncomfortable as hell the whole time he was around him. I took that as well into consideration. It's kind of like how I felt, you know, when people talk about legacies. It's like you're spending so much time on how you want to be remembered by people you'll never meet. Why would you want to spend your life focusing on stuff that's after you're gone and not the people that while you're present?
Waste of time.
And consider the legacy that Howard's going to leave now, because he's going to die with everybody thinking he's a fucking coked out drug addict, whoremonger. After all the work he did, after all the straight shooting and all the straight arrow that he did all his life, he's going to be remembered as a coked out.
And I mean, the way he dies, who he's killed by, that's one of the biggest drug dealers. Well, so even though he had no connection to him, like obviously, you know, besides Jimmy, it's going to make it look even worse.
He was just starting to realize that the firm wasn't the only thing in the world that mattered. The PI comes to the office and gives him the photos. And of course, Howard falls for it. Hook, line, and sinker. PI mentions the silver Miata. Do you think they know about the silver Miata because Jimmy saw it in the parking lot of the liquor store? Or do you think they got Francesca to hit up some of her contacts at the MVD?
That's tough to say because Jimmy could have like waited for him to leave the liquor store. He was paying. So it wouldn't have been like a lot of time that he would have spent like waiting.
They just cut to Jimmy freaking out in the parking lot though.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So I don't know if like while he's freaking out, he's like silver Miata and then like continues his freak out. Or it's interesting to think that maybe Francesca would do that, but the way that we saw her respond to the last thing he asked her to do, she seemed pretty adamant, like, fuck you, dude. You're taking care of shit yourself. I am here as your assistant alone, and I am not doing anything above and beyond anymore. It would be interesting, though, if she had already broken bad and was like calling up contacts to get the name of, to get a car.
There's no telling what Jimmy would have told her to get her to call, though.
I'm trying to think of like what excuse he could have given her. Like, I know he's got I want to get him a few car washes, but I know he's got a real expensive car. So I want to make sure I get him coupons for the right place. So I need to know what kind of car he drives.
I would have assumed he would have been like, this victim that I have as my client says that this guy was part of a hit and run.
Oh, there you go.
We've got to try to find him. Like, I feel like it would be some shit like that. Like
there
you would
go,
really try to play it up.
Showmanship.
Yeah. I mean, we know Jimmy can think quick on his feet. He could have told Francesca anything, and then she would have done it thinking it was legit.
I said last week when we were talking about the plot that they were going to basically do what they did to Chuck in Chicanery and make him seem insane. Well, not on the stand in this case, but in the forum that they're in, make him look insane. And that's exactly what they did. There are so many little callbacks. Howard says, I'm not crazy. And you remember Chuck, like, I'm not crazy. And then Howard accused them of switching the photos, and Chuck was like, they switched the numbers. There was another small one when Howard comes to see Kim and Jimmy after. He brings a bottle of Macallan. That was what he brought after Chicanery. When Chuck had his meltdown, Howard came to see Chuck afterwards, brought him a bottle of Macallan, and was like, don't worry, Jimmy's not going to stay out of trouble for a year. It's all going to be fine. Everything's cool. So this time he brought it to Jimmy, and you won. Another small one is Howard uses the word Baroque.
Our dear friend and ringleader, Charity, loses power. Meanwhile, the rest of our hosts get a little fidgety.
I should do a Los Pollos Hermanos ad in this apron. That's our sponsor. Do you like chicken? Try Los Pollos Hermanos. Dial 1-800-523. Hairball.
Para español, marque dos.
Bienvenidos.
An entire telenovela, and that's the only line everybody says. Everyone has the same line. said in different inflection.
Español, marque
Dos.
dos.
Marque dos.
Para español, marque dos.
Para español, marque dos.
Sorry, guys.
There it is. That's the episode.
This is beautiful. Beautiful.
Excellent. We don't have to go anymore. Then we can stop.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
That was the
Yeah, the
episode of our
podcast will
telenovela.
Oh,
We're
okay,
still
okay.
in
Yeah.
for this episode.
Okay.
Yes.
gotcha.
Yes. We just had a little mini webisode, our telenovela webisode.
If you'd like to hear
Dave?
this podcast in Espanol, marque dos.
Dave, edit that out. That's your clip.
Yeah, just cut. Oh man.
Marque dos.
In season 3, Kim goes to Paige and Kevin to warn them that something might come up about Chuck and Jimmy because of the trial and everything. Paige says that's pretty Baroque when she explains the plan. Just another little thing they threw in there. I think everything in this scene was hilarious too. Like Aaron on the phone with all the call-in people.
And if you get disconnected, just redial the number and press the pound sign. That's a little tic-tac-toe.
I love how she was like screaming into it too. Like, did she really need to be that close?
Well, they are old folks, you know. They can't hear that well.
Yeah. But then you hear like from Kim and Jimmy's end, like you can hear the whole room.
Right. And I love that Kim is getting kind of nervous. You know, she's gonna pick up the phone and do something, and Jimmy's like, just calm down. He knows how the fucking old people are. He knows it takes
Yep.
them a minute to figure out how to unmute their phone when they're in a conference call. And then at the end of the whole thing, when Howard walks out, and Irene is like, "Is this how these usually go?"
Listen, I was so happy.
Kill me.
Irene, y'all saw my reaction. Irene Landry is a legend. Irene Legendary. Let me tell you. This
Yes.
is an Irene Landry Stan account. That is what my burner is. At least what's put on. And I literally was saying, like, before the season started, I was like, all I want from season 6 is cameos from the characters from the earlier seasons. Irene Landry, the Kettlemans, Everett Acker, the boys from season 1 that he does his first scheme with on the show. And I've got like half of that already, and I'm very pleased. But Irene was the one I wanted the most.
In the Insider podcast, they did talk about when they were trying to figure out what the scam was going to be when they were writing the scam. They did think about bringing back the Skater twins for it, but they couldn't.
Oh.
They just couldn't figure out a way to make it work the way they
Right.
wanted it to, so they left them out. But they did talk about bringing them back in. If you think about it, the Skater twins are the genesis of everything, because had they hit the correct car instead of Tuco's car, none of this shit would be happening, because Jimmy would never have been introduced to Nacho. And so he wouldn't have been the one to go to when Lalo needed somebody to represent. Well,
Yep.
they first got him for Domingo, but the Skater twins are the reason we're here right now. Fucking
Thank you,
idiots,
Skater twins.
Damn you, twins. Or thank you for providing wonderful content for our viewing pleasure.
Thank you, you Napoleon Dynamite looking fucks.
For real.
Be
It's
looking
like
like the
John.
Winklevoss
It's like
twins.
Johnny Eater's brothers or something.
Kim and Jimmy having their victory makeout session on the couch.
That was not a make. That was not a
gosh.
makeout
I was about to
session.
say,
That was a little bit more.
Well, you know, I mean, they are married.
That was some definite foreplay.
I told you guys. She's into the shit sexually.
Mhm. Howard hits it right on the head when you get off on it. He tells them that straight up. You get off on it, and they can't deny it. They do. They do
literally,
deny it,
They
but-
literally just did.
Yeah, right.
Mhm. I know this whole time we've been trying to think of reasons, like, why are they doing this? Like, do they hate Howard this much? But like, none of us were like, just for fun. Like,
Yeah.
cause it's fun.
Well, like I said, you know, it's a bonus that they get to needle Howard, and it's a bonus that they get the money, and the money's a great justification for all of it. But deep in their hearts, it was just because they get off on it.
Well, you
They-
remember
Literally.
how much fun they had when they like scammed that first guy together.
Mhm.
Like how that
Mhm.
was like such a pivotal point for them. And like how Jimmy's like, great, we can do this all the time. And Kim is like, no, I'm still a good person right now, or at least I'm pretending to be. So not yet. Later.
Talking about douchey earpiece guy
Yep.
from Breaking Bad, right? The one Walt blows
Yeah,
up his
Ken
car.
wins.
Okay, thank you.
Ken wins.
Yeah. I mean, she loves it so much she kept the bottle top from it.
Lalo in the tunnels. He's filming the video for Eladio talking about Gus and finding the proof and all that. This makes me think even more that Lalo has to be dead. Number one, because Eladio never got that tape, apparently. Because nobody knows about the super lab in Breaking Bad. They would know about it had they gotten the tape. While Gus is so freaked out and paranoid now, he is not like that in Breaking Bad. So I'm pretty sure Lalo he has to be dead. He has to be in the current timeline. Or he got shipped off to some fucking other country or something. Like they're like, you have to get out of here. Eladio's like, you got to get out of here. You're causing problems. Get the fuck out.
I think he has to be dead because I think no matter what, the twins die, Tuco dies, and Hector dies. And I really think that he would have shown up after that if he were alive, no matter what. Like, assuming he found out about it somehow, I think he would have came back and be like, I'll just kill everybody. What do I care?
Also, in Breaking Bad, I think Gus tells Hector that all of his family is dead after Tuco gets killed and after the cousins get killed. I think Gus or somebody tells Hector that he's the last living member of his family or something like that. There was no Lalo in Breaking Bad.
I think that almost means they have to kill him off because they've already in the future.
Unless Gus thinks
Hector's
he's dead.
I was
And
just
he's
gonna
not.
say that.
Would they
He
do
could've-
like a double death fake out? Would they do that?
I don't know. It'd be pretty cool if they did. Sorry, I didn't deliver that correctly. It'd be pretty cool if you did.
Be a whole lot cooler if he did.
That's what you get. Now do it in Spanish.
Oh, I don't know how to say that in Spanish.
That's what you get to.
No. Pretty sure that's not it. I'll look at it.
He decides to call Hector and he hears the click on the line and automatically decides that he's being tapped. This is one of the few times we see Lalo lose his fucking cool as he takes it out on the chair. Then he thinks about it for a minute and he calls Hector back and basically sets up the lie that he's going to go after Gus tonight. Of course, we know it's because he wants to see what happens when he says that, when he does. But he's tipping his hand because now he's letting them know that he's alive. Because I was like, oh, because he made that call, Mike pulled all of the low-level people that were following the low-level priority contacts, which is how Lalo was able to get into Jimmy and Kim's house because they were not being watched anymore. But Lalo doesn't know that. He didn't call them to get him to pull all them in because he doesn't even know that's going on. Other than seeing what they would do when he made the call, what do you think was the point of him making that call?
I think that's exactly what it is. I think he was trying to see how many guards were there and what kind of weapons they had. And he was staking them out. He wanted to see what he was going to be up against. He had already pretty much figured out this was, well, not even really the home base, I guess. It's just like one of the places. Man, I don't know. I felt so prepared for this question and now it's falling apart.
You thought you were in control, but it
That's
turned out
right.
that you really weren't.
Exactly. Yeah, I hadn't even really thought about why other than that. Show me who you got in there. How many guys do you really have? I was more thinking, why has Lalo had the same phone this whole time? Like he's actually using his phone. Like Gus knows the number. That's the number he tapped. Why wouldn't Lalo have picked up a burner?
I think the nursing home was tapped, not Lalo's phone.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Like we know he's going to call his uncle at some point, so we got to keep. Okay,
I'm sure Lalo has a burner.
yeah. I'm like, how do they have your number, man? But yeah.
It's a pretty big thing to tip your hand that you're alive if all you want to do is see what they're going to do if they find out you're alive. What was he looking for? All he did was see Mike come out
sorry.
and Tyrus go in.
I just remembered what I was going to say. He knew that if he threatened Gus, the guards would be pulled to go protect Gus, which would give him an opportunity to sneak into the laundromat and try and find out what's going on down there too. He might try and just get down to the secret bunker thing and take a look himself. And we saw Gus put the gun down there. So I think Gus may even go down there expecting Lalo to go there.
Except Mike told him to go home.
True, but
Go home and get some rest. He does have a body double there.
yeah, Gus isn't going to do, he's not going to get rest.
I think that actually was probably a very good answer. After that, he sees the cockroach, and that makes him think of Jimmy, because in Bagman, when Kim went to see Lalo,
La cucaracha.
he called Jimmy a cockroach. La cucaracha.
Morasis.
Nice.
I had to look it up because it's not like a thing that you can say. I mean, I'm sure you can, but it wouldn't mean the same thing. It would be lost in translation. So I had to look up what would be like the everyday
The colloquial.
slang for it. Yeah. And there were a couple different ways to say it, but the one that means like that's what you deserve is telomeresis.
What you get?
There you go.
It's
Oasis.
That's funny.
Telomeresis.
It's funny you were saying that because Alexa Mansour just started a live video on Instagram. Mike goes to see Gus. Gus is giving out a check to the youth development, whatever. Mike pulls him into the office and tells him about Lalo and everything. Even Mike calls it an uncontrollable situation. He actually says that in his line. So the movie Jimmy and Kim are watching is called Born Yesterday. It's got Judy Holliday and William Holden. And it is about a bullying, uncouth junkyard tycoon, Harry Brock, goes to Washington, D.C. with his brassy girlfriend, Emma, Billy Dawn, and his crooked lawyer, Jim DeVary, to influence a politician or two. As a legal precaution, DeVary presses Harry to marry Billy, as a wife cannot be forced to testify against her husband.
Perfect.
The guy gets embarrassed by her lack of knowledge, and so he hires a journalist to kind of teach her how to behave in Washington or whatever. And it turns out that she's actually smarter than anybody thought. She starts to think for herself and kind of push back against her bullying boyfriend. And she ends up falling in love with the journalist, and they will get married after they take down the big bad guy. I thought that part was interesting where they were pressuring him to marry her so she couldn't testify against him, or didn't have to testify against him.
And his name was Jim.
They're watching TV together, watching the old movies together as they tend to do, and they see the candle flicker. I immediately thought it was Lalo. I got all those shit, it's Lalo. She's like, we don't have to get that. I'm like, no, don't get it. just don't leave it. But it's Howard. And this was very similar to the scene in 509 when Lalo comes over. Just kind of walks in, starts walking through the house, talking the whole time, asking questions, what's going on. And he's not wrong about anything he says at all. He is 100% right about everything he says about them. They are soulless.
Oh man. Howard and Wes this week, both these characters were 100% correct, and they died for it.
It's been a rough couple of weeks for Howards on AMC. If you get cast on the AMC show and your character's name is Howard, do not get comfortable in your part.
Nope.
Watch out.
So the candle flickers again, and I don't even know what to say about it because I'm still just kind of like
the slow-mo of Jimmy pulling Kim into him, like
pulling Kim back. Who was it that said they hoped they weren't using her as body shield?
That
was me. What I want all of you to do is tell me what your feelings were about this scene and how you still feel about it.
I feel like, what the fuck? We got done watching it and we all just sat here for like 10 minutes with our mouths open. We couldn't even speak. It was so shocking. Even as Lalo's pulling the gun out and putting the silencer on, like in my head, I'm like, oh fuck, Howard's dead. Oh fuck, he's dead. But like in my heart, I'm like, maybe he'll turn around and leave. And like, and then I'm like, no, Lalo will just chase him down. Like he doesn't give a fuck. It was just, oh my gosh. And now I can't stop thinking about how they're going to get out of it. Like, what are they going to do now? I don't see Lalo cleaning this mess up, right? Deny everything. Exactly.
Well, obviously he saw my reaction, and that was great content. So I wish you would have got that on video. But like I told you guys, I had Nacho's death spoiled for me. I didn't know this was going to happen, obviously. And Sharon and I talked a little bit after the show about how I said when I started Better Call Saul, from the very first episode Nacho appeared, I knew he was going to be dead by the series wrapped because it just felt that way. He was in the game. And we talked about how Howard wasn't in the game. For me, when I'm watching Better Call Saul, we all know the story of Breaking Bad. And obviously Howard is not a part of that story. But it still felt like he could be the one to just live his life, and he doesn't. And I think this is definitely one of the most shocking death scenes I've ever seen. Even though, like you said, he's pulling out the gun, he's putting on the silencer. I'm like, he'll probably be fine, you know? Fine. And, you know, in retrospect, it just makes so much sense. You know, like the first 3 episodes of the season really built towards Nacho's death, and all the episodes after kind of built towards Howard's. You don't really know that until after the fact, but I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe they went there. I actually made a Facebook post about it. I don't know if you saw it. I rarely ever post about shows like that aren't The Walking Dead. And it really was one of the most riveting hours of television I've seen. It was fun. I'm a callback whore. So all the callbacks, I'm like, yes. And then the ending scene is, I think, one of just masterfully done, masterfully acted. And I'm sad because obviously, like the whole episode, I'm like, stop being mean to Howard. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, he's a dick sometimes, but he's like not a bad person. As shocking as it is for us, I just wonder how guilty Jimmy and Kim are going to feel moving forward, because they spent the last weeks of this man's life making it a living hell. And I wonder how it's going to affect them. But as far as that scene goes, it was flawless. It was emotional, visceral. It was sad, but perfect.
I also want to say that the post you made on Facebook was fucking perfect. We can't wait another 6 weeks.
Yeah, Kevin walked up. We can't wait another 6 weeks, Paige.
What both Aiden and Rich said kind of encapsulates how I feel about that scene. I went into the episode pretty much thinking Howard was going to die in one way or another. I had said that about the drug, that I was worried that it was going to affect his heart or something, because I felt like I saw that pulling Kim and Jimmy apart in the future. And so I went into it thinking that he was going to die. So then when he didn't die at the point that I thought he would, I kind of was like, oh, okay, well, maybe he's fine for a while then. Like, maybe it isn't now. Maybe it's later in the season. So once Lalo showed up, I was like, oh, fuck, this is it. Like, this is it. But in my head, I was still like, no, like he'll leave. He'll leave and it'll be fine. And then it wasn't fine at all. And all of us did the fling back, like in shock. I ripped my headphones out.
The pearls.
I went through and I read some articles about the episode. And I actually read a really interesting interview with Patrick Fabian about the fact that he knew that he was going to die. His character was going to die in this season, but he didn't know when. And so he would wait for each script, and each script would come and he'd be like, maybe it's the script. And then he would read it and he'd be like, nope, not this one. And it got so far into the season that he had kind of deluded himself to think, well, maybe they're going to like kill someone else off and they're not going to kill me. And like, I can live. So I felt kind of like that. Like it was like shit, like blindsided. And apparently I didn't know this, but I guess Ray, Bob, and Patrick were all living together during filming. And so Patrick knew at the beginning of the season and kept that a secret somehow, even though he was like living with them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really cool piece of information to get. Normally I'm not like a behind the scenes kind of person. I feel like it really ruins the show for me a lot of the time. So I try to like not get any of that information. But this was a really interesting part. And so I was glad that I read up about it. So he was blindsided in a way too. He knew it was coming, but wasn't sure when, wasn't sure how. And they actually went into the season not knowing. Before, when they were in season 5, they didn't know that they were going to kill off Howard. This like came about just from that one-off line in season 5 where Kim is like, we have to do something to like con Howard. Like we have to come up with this like long con. That's what led to this. It's just really cool to know that now, because I guess I figured that their writing is so great that they must think 40 steps ahead. Any really, really, really great, well pieced together TV show, you know, sometimes they'll say like we had a plan for 4 or 5 seasons or whatever, and like that was what we planned to do. So I guess I kind of assumed that for this, and that was not the case in this instance. So.
They pride themselves on writing themselves into corners and then having to find a way to get themselves out of it. And they do it. They do it every time. And
they do it beautifully in a way that makes sense. I love that.
I have a question. Bridget said that she kind of felt like Howard was going to die going into this episode. Did you two feel that way? Or like even when the season started, were you like, Howard's going to die? Because like, I don't know if it's just because I was coming off of a binge where I didn't really have time to theorize because it was just like boom, 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 boom. So it kind of really blindsided me when I was watching the episode because like I was not ready for it.
I did not think that Howard was going to die until I was slightly spoiled about 2 days before the episode came out, because Bob Odenkirk posted a picture of himself and Patrick Fabian, and Patrick Fabian had blood in his hair. I did not know it was going to happen, but as soon as Lalo pulled the gun out, I was like, fuck, man. Fuck, he's dead. Yeah. So I didn't think about it beforehand. Like, I never really considered Howard getting killed during the season. The only way I figured he would die was if they just destroyed him so thoroughly he might commit suicide or something like that. I never considered him getting murdered by Lalo.
That's interesting that you say that, because I was thinking, like, we talked about the similarities of like him and Chuck earlier, and I said like he kind of becomes the man that he idolized, and he pretty much dies, like, obviously differently than Chuck, but like very similarly in the sense that Jimmy and Kim pulled off a scheme that humiliated them in front of everyone, that led them to a confrontation that then made them feel incredibly low. And of course, Chuck kills himself. And I kind of feel like Howard may have went down that path if he'd survived this confrontation, because we heard about his marriage crumbling. Now, Clifford Maine and everybody, Rick Schweiker, they all think he's insane and he's on drugs and this and that. And like Dave always says, you can't unring a bell. Everyone's heard that. You can't erase that from someone's memory. Even if it's false, it's out there and it's in people's minds. That similarity is there. And I found that to be very interesting.
So I'm thinking one of the ways they could deal with Howard's death, Kim and Jimmy, is call it a suicide. Yo, this guy went crazy and started screaming crazy shit about me today. And then he showed up at my house screaming stuff at me and then blew his own brains out. That's honestly the only way I can see that they can get out of it, unless they just hide the body or something somewhere.
Is Howard right-handed?
My thing is, like, if he committed suicide, he'd have a gun. So,
well, I mean, Lalo doesn't want to get caught either. So what's to stop Kim and Jimmy from saying this fucker Lalo came and killed this guy in our apartment? So I feel like Lalo will be like, here's the gun. Let's make it look like a suicide. That way, because he still wants Kim and Jimmy to be out there. He doesn't want them to be in jail or anything. He needs Jimmy. Yeah. So it's, it's not like he wants them to get in trouble or anything, because that just leads back to him and makes more trouble. They'll try to make it look like a suicide, which everybody would believe since Howard went fucking crazy at the conference.
There's a lot of ways they could prove it wasn't, but since it's a TV show, they may just sort of gloss over all the important facts that would disprove suicide.
It's a different type of TV show too.
Right.
That's true.
I think the silencer is another thing, because that's an apartment complex, is it not? So if he was going to kill himself, would he really go through the trouble of getting a silencer?
They'll have to shoot it off again.
Yeah. They could shoot it out the window or something and make a noise. Did you notice the blood splatter all over their painting?
With the plan on the other side of it?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
They better remove that before
Howard's
fucking evidence.
Howard's brains are all over their plan.
It's just, that's like an extra sick level. Howard's blood is literally on the opposite side of the plan. And not only
that, Jimmy still has that painting in the future.
Oh, shit.
Because
we can't get rid of it. Oh my God.
It's crazy to me that two people now have died based on these schemes, right? Howard died unintentionally with Lalo showing up at the time that he did. And Chuck died because he killed himself because he felt like he couldn't redeem himself after everything that had happened with Jimmy. You'd think at that point he would be like, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. I have too much influence over other people's lives, clearly.
Well, do you think he's going to be resentful of Kim because she's the one that pushed him to do it?
Well, I think this is definitely going to be a breaking point for the two of them. I am really hopeful, as we're talking about, like, Lalo is most likely going to die. And then the only other character that we don't know what happens to them is Kim. I don't want it to be that everyone just dies. That's dumb and boring. So I want there to be something that happens, like either Lalo fakes his death and he gets away. I mean, not saying I want Kim to die because I don't, but just saying, like, there's got to be something that happens between the two of them, that at least one of them lives, however that may be.
What if the reason Lalo is not around in Breaking Bad is because he's in prison and Kim put him there and now she has to go into witness protection?
See, that would be like a cool ending, right? To me, that would be cool. That would be interesting. So I hope that it goes that route instead of the route of just bam, everyone's dead. And so none of these people even exist anymore. So it doesn't matter.
Then the show ends with Lalo showing up to Gene.
Oh my God, I would die.
Oh,
I would die. See, that would be awesome. That would be great television if all of a sudden at the end it's Lalo the fun.
My hope is that Kim for whatever reason, ends up back in her hometown or in a close area because it's not very far from Omaha, and that's who Gene's going to call to get him to help his kin, and they're going to be reunited. That's what I hope. Anyway, there has to be a reason why he is placed so close to her on the map. Last question. What do you think is going to become of HHM now that Howard's dead?
I guess Carrie's going to just have to take it.
Come on, Carrie.
I vote for Aaron. No, Aaron. Wait a minute. Aaron works for Cliff, so it can't be Aaron.
Ernie?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we know some of the other parts.
Poor Ernie. I want him to be in charge now.
Hi.
Are they gonna have to break it down? Is it gonna be taken over?
I wonder if Schweikert and Maine would like absorb the company, or would they have to still buy somebody out?
They would have to buy it out
though.
Cheryl.
Howard stocks would go to Cheryl, and so Cheryl would be
fair.
She would be the majority owner.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know what she does for a living, do we?
No. Hell, we didn't even know she existed until a couple episodes ago.
What if she's a lawyer and she takes over?
The bitch looks like she goes to the country club for her living. That's what she looks like she does. She has tennis. She has tennis lessons at 11 a.m.
The words of Kevin, we can't wait 6 more weeks.
I know. She belonged to the same country club. Well, I guess she would belong to the same country club as Howard. So,
oh God, the racist one.
Yeah.
I hope by the end of the season that Sandpiper settles. Like that's what I want. I just want him to fucking settle. We've been dealing with this since season 2.
Which this also brings up an interesting question. Will Sandpiper settle now? And do Jimmy and Kim even want that money now?
Ooh,
well, Cliff's
going to feel gross.
I thought Cliff made it pretty clear that they were going to take the settlement, because if they didn't take it, they were only going to lose money after that. So I'm pretty sure they were signing off on that with or without Howard.
But if it comes to light that the lead attorney on this case that just had this big blow up and this big problem and this druggie, blah, 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 is that going to tank the case totally?
Not if the ink is already dry.
Yeah, Cliff's got to push this through fast before.
Yeah, if he pushed it through, like, let's say Howard left and he pushed it through while Howard was gone, it's over. But I mean,
hopefully,
Rich said he was going to drop it, $1 million every day.
Every day.
Like, he was going to take it.
I love how, like, compassionately he says it too. He's like, you know, we're going back to the last offer and you don't take it. We're going to, sorry, take $1 million away. You don't settle it the day after that. We're going to take some more. Sorry.
I always liked Rich, though. Even when he was the enemy, when they were trying to put together the Sandpiper case in the first place, and he was the, the bad guy. He was always just so nice, and I hope this isn't the last we see of Rich.
Yeah, he was really good to Kim, too.
Yeah, even when she called him out in the middle of the office, he didn't lose his cool. He was like, look, I know we all have problems. Just don't do it in front of the troops next time.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I like him.
And if you'd like to hear this podcast in Spanish, marque dos.
Para español, marque dos.
Did these things always go like this?
And scene. Yeah. Scene. That's the end. Don't do anything else, Dave. We're not doing a rating ending. That's the end of the episode. Yep. That's it.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Rip Howard. Bye, Howard.
R.I.P. Howard.
Bye.
Pour one out.
Bye.